Okay, so I want to let you guys know, not to worry, I still have several more videos dedicated to the Metroid Prime Remaster that I still plan on making over the course of the next week or two. But today, I want to touch on some of these updates around Zelda Tears of the Kingdom because right behind Metroid Prime Remaster, the biggest current piece of news for me is, of course, the new trailer for Tears of the Kingdom and the fact that that game is coming out very, very soon. Also, Pikmin 4. That's right up at the top of my list as well for exciting things happening. But really, Zelda is the main big focus, right? Because it's going to be the biggest game of the year, and it looks absolutely fantastic. We all know about the Nintendo Direct and the great things that we saw, including Metroid Prime Remaster, which I'm sure you've seen my reaction and my kind of discussion after the fact. But again, they also closed with the first full teaser, or full trailer, I should say. Really, we're done with teasers, it seems. We've moved on to full trailers. We had a 2.5-minute one. And while it's not as amazing as some of the best Breath of the Wild trailers, it still was a great trailer, and it finally gave us a great glimpse into the game. It is extremely exciting. However, there is another less exciting detail kind of surrounding Tears of the Kingdom right now that kicked off right before the Nintendo Direct in this new trailer and was then confirmed after the Direct in the new trailer, and it has to do with the fact that this will be the first game on the Nintendo Switch that is confirmed to be selling for $70. Some of us are probably aware that the night before the Nintendo Direct happened, it was shown that on the pre-order page on Nintendo's website for Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, the price was listed at $69.99. We have not seen any $70 games for Nintendo Switch at all. We know that with the introduction of the PS5 and the Xbox Series X, that Sony and Microsoft have now dabbled in $70 prices. Not every game is $70, but I know in terms of Sony at least, that all of their first-party games are selling for $70. I believe I bought Demon's Souls and Ratchet and Clank at $70. I don't think I paid that for Spider-Man Miles Morales. I think that was maybe $50 or $60. I might have even paid $70 for Resident Evil 8, even though that's a third-party game. But I also might be remembering that wrong, so don't quote me. But I know for sure I paid $70 for, God of War, right? God of War was $70, Ratchet and Clank, Demon's Souls. I have paid $70 for those 3 PlayStation 5 games. But of course, Nintendo and the Switch have not been selling $70 games, which makes sense because the console released in 2017, 3 years before Sony and Microsoft went next gen. And while the Switch continues to be kind of outdated tech, even its best games have been selling for the standard first-party $60 price. But right before the Direct, we had the website show $70, everyone freaked out, then Nintendo pulled that price down and they pulled pre-orders away. The next day, the Direct happens, we see the new trailer, it's really great, and then after the fact, Nintendo did confirm that $70 will be the price for the base version of Tears of the Kingdom. So it also looks like Polygon reached out to Nintendo to get confirmation about the $70 price, and if this is the new standard price for first-party games from Nintendo. And here's what they said via email. No, we determine the suggested retail price for any Nintendo product on a case-by-case basis. Now, I'm just going to tell you, I think that's a lie. That does not make sense. That does not track given the past pricing for Nintendo games, I would say in the disc-based era, right? Going back to the older cartridge days, Super Nintendo and N64 specifically, prices varied significantly. They varied dramatically, I would even say. You could buy 64 games for as low as like 40 or 50 bucks and as high as 80 or 90 dollars. It was crazy. And so, ever since they went to disc-based media, like with the GameCube and the Wii and the Wii U, everything was a standard kind of flat fee, or flat price, I should say, for all of their first-party games and most games on all of those consoles. They were all either $50 or $60 given the respective era of when the games were releasing. In the Switch era, we've moved back to cartridges. Granted, they're kind of tiny little cards, right? It's a different kind of cartridge than when they were larger cartridges back in the older days. But they're still cartridges, and they have to do with the size and the space available on them. But it's worth noting that for the most part, we really haven't seen any fluctuating prices. I mean, some games are released at discount prices, maybe based on if it's an indie studio, or Nintendo has even done it a few times. Even something like the Metroid Prime trilogy itself, which we know just released, and both the digital and physical versions of that game are only $40, right? So sometimes Nintendo has done it. Usually they release full price at $60, but it does happen. And again, indie studios or third-party games sometimes release at cheaper prices. But again, this is all not really the point, because the majority of games releasing on the Switch in the current era have just been the standard price of $60. And so before I jump into my overall thoughts on why I think this might be happening, I want to actually quickly just discuss with you guys my own personal perspective on this idea of $70 games across the board for the entire industry, any platform. I'm not talking about just Nintendo or just anyone else. Just as a concept, I've never really actually gone in depth either on Twitter or in a YouTube video about my feelings on this. And my feelings on this might be kind of controversial to a lot of people. I'm not going to try to tell anyone how to feel. I'm not going to try to convince you to feel the same as me, because I think any opinion is valid on this specific topic. But I do have my own specific feelings, and that is that for the most part, you guys, I kind of don't really care. Now, when I say that, let me be clear when I also say, in a perfect world, the less money we pay for anything, the better. It's not that I love paying money for whatever I'm buying. I don't want food to be more expensive. I don't want gas to be more expensive. I don't want movie ticket prices to be more expensive. I don't want video game prices to be more expensive. I don't like giving more money for the things that I buy. But in a world where, you know, video games are just a product that I buy myself pretty regularly, and I have been for 4 decades, when I look at how prices have gone up and down over the years, and I see the advancements in technology and the larger sizes of games, the graphics and technology going into them, and just the fact that the world is the way it is, when I saw games go from $50 to $60, that sucked, but I understood it, and it just is what it is, so I did it. Now, after many, many years, we're seeing only some games on next-gen consoles also be sold for another $10, moving up to $70, and like, yes, it sucks, okay? I'm not pro $70 games, but I'm not anti-changing prices either, if that hopefully makes sense. You know, I'm not trying to like support the big corporate machine by saying, yay, $70 is great and we should be happy about it. I'm not happy about it, I'm just not mad about it. So hopefully that perspective makes sense. And it's why, I mean, I even listed some games in the beginning of this video. It's why I really haven't cared that I've purchased a couple of PlayStation 5 games for $70. And if you go through my Twitter history, I don't know if I've ever really spoken up against or for this $70 price, because it's just not anything that really triggered anything within me. Like I said, other than to say that, yes, rising prices suck. I'm not happy about it. It just hasn't ruined my day. And, you know, to be a little bit biased, I know everyone is in a different financial situation. Everyone comes from a different walk of life, and I respect how everyone has to treat their own dollars and how they spend them. But I'm just going to talk for myself, and I think part of it is that I can just afford it, so it doesn't really affect me to spend an extra $10 on a video game. For people in a different situation, it's a different story, which is why, like I said, I'm not trying to convince you or anyone to feel the same as me. If this $70 price for video games really impacts your wallet, that sucks, and it's why I would rather video game prices don't go up, okay? I'm not saying they should go up. I'm just saying I don't care. It doesn't impact my wallet. And so whether it's a Nintendo Switch game or a PlayStation 5 game or a PC game, if a certain game I want is $70 and I feel it's worth that price, then I don't really care. And so naturally, if we bring this back to Zelda's price and the idea of Nintendo Switch games being $70, it's why I also don't care about that, right? I'm gonna buy this game at $70. It's not ruining my day. It's not impacting me negatively in any single way. And I also know this game, of any game that could release, this is like at the very top of the list of games that I think is just gonna justify a $70 price. So I don't really have an issue with this. But then we start to talk about why Nintendo is doing this. I mentioned earlier in their quote where they said, oh, this isn't standard. We look at every game on a case-by-case basis. I call BS on that. That is not the case. You know, it's why I went into that diatribe about the fact that prices have been $60 so far. Clearly, they're making a very calculated decision with Zelda to raise the price, and I don't think it's that, oh, we've been revisiting hundreds of games for the last 6 years, and every single time we look at a game, we say it's $60. No way, man. I guarantee you they just knew every game was $60, and only now are they deciding to make a different choice with Zelda. And there are reasons to think why they might be doing this, but I think the reason might be maybe even something else. So I think there are two big trains of thought on why some folks believe that Nintendo would be doing this with Zelda. Maybe there's more than two. There's probably a few. One is they know they can just get away with it. So that's obvious. Yes, you charge $70 for your most anticipated game. Everyone's going to buy it. So that's the first one. The second one is inflation. Just in general, worldwide, inflation is a huge thing right now. Here where I live in the United States, it's been a massive issue and it's impacted our entire economy and it sucks big time. So yeah, businesses are going to account for inflation. Three, it's worth noting that Nintendo recently confirmed they're raising the wages for their employees, which is fantastic. And so, hey, if that is being offset by $10 more for just one game, Zelda, I mean, to me, that's fine. I would rather people make more money hourly or their annual salary for me to pay $10 more for Zelda. So there's that. Now, the other thing, and probably the most significant thing, would be the fact that this is going to be using a larger cartridge, right? I believe, don't quote me, but I believe Tears of the Kingdom is going to be on a 32 gig cart, which is bigger than most games and most cartridges. And so sometimes maybe they feel they have to charge more money if they're using a larger size cartridge, right? This goes back to the fluctuating prices for Nintendo 64 games because of cartridge sizes at that time. And now we're looking at the same thing. And so I think this is tricky because we've seen evidence of other games being released, Nintendo and third party, that are also on the bigger cartridges, and no one felt that they need to raise the price at that time. So why are they deciding to do it for Zelda? I think it's a different reason, but it should be noted that the larger cartridge size, some people have pointed out, could be the reason. And so what's the reason I think that they're raising the price? Well, if you know me, you already know what I'm going to say, but this is what I truly believe is the number one reason. And it's that I think they're just testing the waters finally for next generation pricing, you guys. I think that they're trying to grease the wheels, so to speak, for $70 games on their next piece of hardware. Now, does this mean that every game would be $70 on their next hardware? I don't know. Sony is doing, some $70 games and some $60 games, right? So maybe Nintendo would be doing the same. But, in reminding you guys that this is only speculation, I'm just a guy predicting and guessing as a fan, okay? This is based on nothing than just my own thoughts and my own brain. But since I happen to think that the reveal of their next hardware is sometime soon, most likely before the end of this year, maybe in the beginning of next year, but I'm going to still predict that probably before this year is over, I feel like they know that with their next hardware, they might be releasing some or all games, first party, at $70. And instead of maybe giving us sticker shock at the same time they announce new hardware, maybe they were like, let's take the safest game we could get away with charging $70 for on the Switch, which is the new Zelda game. Let's make this game $70. People are going to complain, but they're still going to buy it. And you add $10 more to every single sale. If this game sells 20 million copies, you add $10 to each sale. Like, that's an insane amount of money they're getting additionally. And so, if you were to do it with something a little bit more risky, like Metroid Prime 4, for example, I feel like you'd get a lot more pushback than doing it for something like Zelda, where they know everyone's going to buy it, even if they're unhappy about it. And so that by the time the next-gen hardware is coming, and by the time Nintendo would confirm to us, in theory, again, all speculating, by the time that they would confirm to us that Nintendo games on this new hardware are going to be $70, we'll be like, well, we already did that once with Zelda, back in May, so, who cares? We've already crossed the threshold. Nintendo has already ripped the Band-Aid off, so to speak, on people paying $70 for Nintendo games by doing it with Tears of the Kingdom. Again, the safest game they could do it with and get away with it. And so I just think that this is probably what they're doing. I think this is testing the waters or ripping the Band-Aid off, greasing the wheels, preparing us, the audience, for paying $70 for Nintendo games. I think that the inflation and the larger cartridge size is probably also part of it, to be fair. I don't think it's any one thing. I just think that probably the biggest reason, or at least the biggest reason I gravitate to, the thing that feels right in my gut, is that this is preparation for next-gen pricing. maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this is the only time we'll ever pay $70 for a game from Nintendo. Maybe this is it. But I don't think that's the case. I think their quote about them looking at each game on a case-by-case basis is a lie. I don't think they're being truthful. I don't believe that at all. And so we'll see, but you know how I feel. Yes, inflation. Yes, 32 gig cart, but also next-gen pricing, you guys. It just makes too much sense. The timing lines up. So that's what I think is going on and why I think this game is probably $70.